So welcome to the Questers Conference again, and to this workshop. Thank you so much for being here. This is Energetic Self-Mastery, an Introduction to Psychic Self-Defense. But before we kind of open the field and go and delve into a lot of these taboo subjects, I'd like to ask everyone here, first of all, are you familiar with psychic self-defense by show of hands? Is this a term that you're aware of? Okay, and how many people use a regular spiritual house cleaning technique for their energy field or their aura? Okay, beautiful. How many people here are aware of the 12-dimensional shielding process and have used that? Okay, fabulous. Thank you so much. So this material will start out with introduction, but towards the end, if you have any questions, we'll open that up into more complex subjects, but I want to set the foundation for psychic self-defense, and really what this means is achieving balance and integration and how to get there. And this is a developed model to kind of assist in guidelines for that. And then we'll get into more complex issues. And if anyone has a specific issue they'd like to share in the question time, please feel free to ask, because there is nothing that you could say that would surprise me. So as we move into psychic self-defense, what is psychic self-defense? So, psychic self-defense is energetic mastery. It's coming into an awareness of your aura, your energy field, and comprehending the personal power that consciousness is, what your energy actually is to you. It is power. And the model of multidimensional anatomy is understanding your spiritual layers and your spiritual self. Once you have a model of which to connect to these spiritual layers as you know they exist, as I touched on in the conference presentation, I was talking about levels of intelligence. Our chakras and these layers of dimensional energy are intelligence. And when you start to access that intelligence, you can connect into cosmic intelligence, also levels of intelligence that are defined by extraterrestrial intelligences. As your aura gets larger, you have a larger sphere of influence on the field in the environment. And this is why it becomes more important as you grow spiritually and you expand your consciousness to understand what energetic mastery and psychic self-defense is, because there is a common misperception. As we grow spiritually, there are certain phases of which, when you are within a certain parameter of frequency within your aura, you will attract that which is in direct alignment with what you're putting out. When you start to expand your field beyond what's known as the planetary levels of intelligence, you start to attract other phenomena that are able to see your light from another dimensional time and space. And so I'd like to ask once again, is there anyone here that has had a phenomena or an ET experience in their particular meditations or anything that they've done in their healing? Okay, great. And has some of that been frightening or felt okay? Very good. Okay, and this is why I think it's very important that we broach this dialogue, that we open up that dialogue, and know that this is a safe haven and space here for this. There's nothing to fear, and there's nothing strange about these anomalies. It is what is. And when you understand that it is what is, it takes away the fear, especially when you're given tools to understand, again, your power in that position. Because what we're learning with psychic self-defense is how to hold dominion in your space. Your space. That means your consciousness, your body, is your space. It doesn't belong to anyone else, it belongs to you. And therefore, it's your responsibility to learn how to hold that space. And once you become more in mastery of that and more confident in that, again, you'll find you become more balanced and integrated within all of the different layers of which exist. And this is what we really want to achieve with psychic self-defense. So again, the first step is building a strong four-body system. So it's understanding that we exist at a physical level, emotional level, mental level, and spiritual level. There are actual bodies that exist. Physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. So when you are connecting to yourself and your experience of yourself, the first level is disidentifying with this as actually being all you, because you are so much more than this. And so by understanding that when you are able to connect to your physical self and ask your physical body, how do I feel physically? What do I need to do to bring balance to my physical self? How do I feel emotionally? How's my emotional body doing? Learning how to check in with these layers is actually, as simple as it sounds, it's very profound, because what you're doing is you're bringing things into the core of the singularity, which is really what unity consciousness is and balance is. We're bringing all of these levels of self into the oneness, into singularity. And sometimes we have to bridge the mind, the body, and spirit, and the emotional self with a cohesive language that you can begin to bridge it so that all layers of yourself are communicating together. And through that communication, you again achieve more balance, more spiritual and consciousness power, and again, more core strength within you, because this is really designed to bring you into your core and into your truth, which is your spirit. So by strengthening the integrity of the bodies, you build core inner sustainability connection. What that means is that everything is driven from your inner, and the external really becomes less important to you. Obviously, we are here to be integrated spiritual beings in a contemporary world, and that is a challenge for most of us that we're dealing with on a day-to-day level, because just because we're working in 3D jobs or doing whatever we're doing doesn't mean that we have to disconnect from our spirituality or our consciousness. We're able to hold this consciousness no matter what we're doing, in whatever scenario we're in, and we're able to hold that peace and balance no matter what is happening in the environment. And that, again, is a part of psychic self-defense as well. Learning to be peace in the center of chaos. So in order for us to come into our own sustainability, it's very important that we understand the forces of polarity that exist as pairs of opposites. And this is what we have on the planet here today. There's, again, in some of the New Age discussions, there is a rhetoric that we don't exist in polarity any longer, and that is really not an accurate statement. It's to say that outside this reality, beyond dimensionalization, there is no polarity. But right now, all of us right here have a piece of us in polarity. So that means we need to face that. We need to understand that these forces indeed do exist, and they exist as forces, and they as well exist as tangible entities. And so in understanding this, it gives us a greater body of knowledge of which to draw upon, especially when we're dealing with certain spiritual situations. Again, many of us in this group would be more vulnerable to these types of phenomena because we're interested in expanding consciousness. We're in the quest for truth. You know, we're doing healing and investing in ourselves in this way. And of course, there's many of us too that have star-seeded genetics, that are part of the indigo consciousness family. These families are more vulnerable to psychic sponging, or again, being, because most of us that are here on the planet at this particular time have spiritual agreements to really support the body of the earth and the beings upon it to evolve into a higher dimensional reality through this ascension cycle. So that's why so many of us are driven to be healers, and in fact, it doesn't even mean you have to have the shingle of healer. You can be in a desk job and still be a healer. Many times there's beings that are working in 3D jobs that are holding this space. They're in agreement to hold the space for that organization. It's kind of like putting your hand out and saying, look, if you want to walk over the threshold, I'm holding the vibration, and I'm trying to harmonize the space to allow that to occur. So again, all of us, no matter what we're doing, our field, our energy field, can be a healing field. When we learn as well to come more into our core and more into our spirit, you'll start to notice that people feel a lot more peaceful around you, or healed around you, or you'll find the opposite. You'll find people decide that they don't like you for any apparent reason, and this is what polarity is. The higher you go up the dimensional scale of frequency, the more amplified polarity gets. So what that means is that you'll have one or of two responses to your healing work or to your person. You'll have people that may feel a very healing, loving presence with you and feel healed by your presence and really like you and want to connect with you. Or you'll have the opposite. You'll have someone who feels very uncomfortable and irritated in your presence. And I think sometimes for those of us that are healers, that can really hurt our feelings because we don't understand why this person that we're just being kind or appearing, we think we're just being kind and loving, and this person really doesn't like us. And what I've found is that it's very much like understanding through the law of harmonics that we're talking about resonance. The closer in resonance a being is to you, the more they're going to feel that resonance to you and want to be in your field. Sometimes when there's a larger schism in the resonant vibration, what we're talking about is the overall aura, what the overall aura-like quotient or vibrational sequence of that aura is. And so when there's a larger schism between the two bodies, you'll feel discordance. And so a being that is a holder of the light, if you've committed to be a healer, you've committed to hold the truth, you've committed to serve your spirit, sometimes you'll notice that your light is like shining on somebody's dark closet. And this is giving them an opportunity to look inside that dark closet and say, gee, I didn't know I had a monster in there. I think I need to clear that monster. But see, a lot of times we're not taught self-responsibility and self-accountability, and you'll get someone who'll say, well, you made me feel this. As we know, no one can make you feel anything. You have to take responsibility for your own emotion and mental state and attitude. However, this is very common in the healing, light-working environment, so it's important to be aware of this dynamic. To first understand, do not engage. When you are feeling this kind of emotional triangulation or drama, the first rule is, do not engage. Become neutral. The second you try to fix the problem, or you want to send them light to make them feel better, or whatever it is that you feel you have to resolve the issue, generally that energy is getting fed and will only amplify, and you'll be going, wow, all I was trying to do was fix that problem and have that conversation and create harmony and peace with this individual, and it's getting worse. What's happening? So this is the wisdom. Understand your body is a technology of God. It's a technology of consciousness. You will activate people. Some of it will feel very good and positive, and sometimes it won't. And when you do have those moments where you're activating someone, and it's feeling like a negative energy, just remember, do not engage. And understand that you are activating, and this is your job and role as a light worker and as a healer. And again, this is not to discount your responsibility in that entanglement and action. You know, first come in and ask, what is my intention here? Were my intentions skewed? What was my part in creating this situation? But many times what I find is that a lot of these situations simply just are because of these discordant schisms, and also because most human beings are not shown how to clear their spiritual bodies. Many people have entity hitchhikers and attachments. Many people are holding different levels of phenomena in their bodies, and they are not aware of that. Many times human beings that are not in their own power or awareness of their spiritual self can be literally possessed by a thought form, which is like an entity, but it is a soulless being, or an actual entity itself. So sometimes understanding with compassion that as we go through this ascension cycle, we have a tremendous amount of phenomena coming into the planet at this time. And as we were describing yesterday in the conference, because we're at the end of the ascension cycle, what is happening is a literal dissolution of the membranes between the dimensions. And as this occurs, it's very much like saying that dimensional veil is no longer there. But there's a content in there. That means there's something that was existing there, a life form of consciousness. That means that consciousness is now bleeding through our dimension, coming into this time and space. And so this is going to continue. This is a part of the ascension cycle on our planet. So again, being equipped from a fearless position and understanding there is nothing stronger and more protective than your infinite connection to the God source, and cultivating that connection and the confidence of being in your core is really the most important thing at this time. And I'm going to share with you towards the end of our workshop today some techniques to practice, some suggested things to work with. So you can leave here feeling that you have a tool to work with immediately. So again, what I've seen, especially in the Lightworking and Indigo community, is that most of us do not have an accurate assessment of this physical reality because we're not understanding how it works. So to have an accurate assessment of the third dimensional program, which it is a program, very much like a computer system, you need to know what you're interfacing with. So just because you don't believe there's extraterrestrials or dark entities doesn't mean they're not there to interact with you. When we're in denial, we breed manipulation. And this is very important to understand. We are not feeding negative energy. We're understanding an accurate assessment of what is happening here from an impersonal view, from an observing consciousness. There is no right and there is no wrong, but there is polarity of forces. We don't need to judge it, we need to discern it. And many times as we become more accomplished in our healing, you will actually receive visits by dark entities or lost entities or confused souls, and they're going to ask you for help because they need to be healed. So a lot of what psychic self-defense is, as well as learning first, you get really clear in your own boundaries as a being. You start to work with embodying your core spirit and learning tools of which to do that. And then you get to a certain level where there are actual entities and beings that you may interface with that will be actually asking for your help, but it will be under the guise of an attack. So when you're getting psychically attacked by someone, many times it's a call for healing. But until you have a mastery of your own self, it's really not appropriate to take that on. So the very first level is, very similarly, do not open astral doors if you do not know how to close them. And again, we're going to go through this a little bit more so that makes a little more sense. We need to have an accurate assessment of this reality so we know what we're looking at. And of course, learning self-discipline in order to be in control of the direction you place your attention, focus, and energy. That's our responsibility. And mastering neutrality and now moment awareness is very important in becoming transparent to these energies and this type of phenomena. But, we will always have this type of phenomena. Certainly, it is a phenomena that I undergo all the time. As long as we are alive and breathing and in a human body, it's possible to have this. So there is no transcendent of this particular phenomena entirely as long as you are in physical density, because this particular planet and this density there's a lot of healing to do here. We have a lot of damage in the field. We have a lot of damage in the collective emotional body of the human being. And this creates tremendous amounts of different levels of phenomena. So it's something to just, again, understand. It just is what it is. A part of Ascension is 99% emotional clearing and healing. So a lot of psychic self-defense is this as well. So again, why is psychic self-defense important? It's important to get comfortable in this world of energetic phenomena through educational awareness so that you'll begin to break free of the social stigmas around this issue that generally creates fear in most people. There is nothing to fear, as this is the dynamics of how energy works in a dualistic system such as ours on planet Earth. Once we understand that this phenomena exists, we can explore our multidimensional anatomy and then better comprehend the natural laws of which humans are governed by in this energetic system. We begin to amass the tools to realize that we are playing a part in a stage of evolution that is divinely orchestrated. We can then become purposeful in our power as we are divinely guided by our higher self to achieve and direct our soul's desires. We can consciously interact with these higher forces to create more accurate manifestations and experience more joy in our daily life. As we hold these higher vibrating patterns of self-awareness, it becomes increasingly difficult for these negative energies to superimpose upon your energy field and take advantage of your life force. Further, as you become self-aware, you begin to heal these lost aspects of the shadow self, and these energies become dissolved into the unification of the balanced light you really are. And that really is the purpose of psychic self-defense and energetic mastery. To achieve balance, harmony, and integration with all aspects of self, and to live life in order to maximize human potential, which includes more abundance, love, connection, and joy. To strengthen interpersonal relationship and social skill sets in order to feel completely confident and comfortable and purposeful in all of your outside influences and interactions. To be a soul-embodied and actualized in your highest expression and ultimate destiny, therefore contributing your creative genius to the human collective and to our planet. The two most important relationships to cultivate is the right relationship to yourself and the right relationship to either God, source, or universe, whatever you're more comfortable with. These are really the most important priorities in bringing harmony and balance to your life in order to achieve this. Now, we went through this a little bit in the actual conference talk, but just for a moment to understand, as we kind of got a primer on the levels of intelligence with the chakra systems, this is really good in understanding where most people are at, again, the discernment level of energy. Phase 1 of the soul evolution path means a lot of beings that begin the awakening process are polarized in their astral body. Now, those of us that have worked with the astral plane and are familiar with the astral body, this is not an enlightened plane. It is a plane of delusion, trickery, and quite frankly, massive amounts of control at that level. The delusion that exists on the astral plane is very much like looking at an oasis or a facade that is not real. The phenomena of holographic inserts exists in the astral plane, which means what you're looking at is really not what is. So learning discernment of being able to boundary test certain energies or entities or visions that you're having, the first thing you want to come into understanding is this interference and is this manipulation? Because the frequency of interference and manipulation is not organic to the living light of Source. The Source does not manipulate. Something that interferes or manipulates has an agenda, and that is an agenda that you must be aware of in order to discern if this is the path or the action or the circumstance that you want to continue to put your attention and consciousness within and towards. And again, this is very important because the soul evolution path, the very beginning of the awakening, is hitting the astral body and astral, which is the heart chakra, the first layers of the heart. What most of us don't understand or realize is that the heart is a multiple chamber. So when we start to open the heart, it's so amazing and so beautiful. We can go into blissful states. But if we remain in this blissful state, we become inert and ineffective. Our job here, and that is our mission. And when I say job, I understand too that being the core essence of your being, we could call that your soul job, but it really holds your ultimate peace and fulfillment in the potential of who you are as a being here. So again, sometimes getting to that point of expression will challenge you. And you'll have to face fears and get over some things that are maybe a part of personality issues that you may need to get through. I, as one, was terrified of public speaking. But guess what? Here I am. So each one of us has our personal fear that we have to get through and say, is this something? Is this my fear? Is this holding me back from my potential? Because truly what happened is my desire to be of service and to know the truth really outweighed the fears that I had. And it gave me the discipline. It's a discipline to get through those fears and understand that the path of ascension and the path of spiritual development is not an easy one all the time. It's the most rewarding. But certainly a lot of, I think, the New Age talks about the beauty and the love, and we really don't talk about the difficulties and the challenges. And it's important, I think, to do that. Not, again, to focus on anything negative, but to focus on what's real and what's human. And to say, look, this has been very difficult for me. And you know what? It's okay, because I'm committed to the path, and I want to be of service. And that truly is the most important thing. My faith and my connection to God is my priority. And so this is truly, I think, being human and real and sharing about this particular issue, I think, is really important. And I hope this, again, opens the dialogue for many more of us, because I know that this is created in my practice, and especially in beings that I have come to counsel through the years, tremendous amounts of pain around this issue. The most common thing I hear is, I have no one to talk about with this issue, and I'm terrified. And we need to dispel that. We need to really open this up and say, look, there's nothing you can say to me that I is going to think is weird, or I'm going to judge it as dark, or I'm going to send you to an exorcist, or whatever it is. Because the issue is that all of us are a part of this polarized system. All of us have to master the dark. It just is. We can't be afraid of it. And there are obviously many other beings that are human and non-human, that are going through the same process we are. We just don't always see them with our physical eyes, but we can sense them as influences in our aura. And again, this is what I want to bring your attention to, so that you become a master of your own aura in commanding your space, and that which is consecrated to the eternal living light of God, and learning how to hold the power of that within your own being and with your own energy field. So the first phases of when one is going through awakening, this is pretty much the fourth, fifth, and sixth layer as described yesterday, is the soul matrix. And again, it has a lot of astral influence upon it, and therefore can be a tricky one, because we're trying to figure out what indeed we are experiencing, what indeed are we coming in contact with. Is that Mother Mary figure that is coming to us, is this is this really Mother Mary? Were you going to ask a question?
Did you say soul mate trick?
Soul matrix.
Thank you.
Matrix. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. So again, discerning what the astral plane is really important in the spiritual development process, because the astral plane is the plane where the most trickery and delusion and negativity and attack against a human body happens. So we're going to talk about the meridians that open into the astral body as well, so that you learn how to protect those as a part of the tool that will be given. So during this phase, when we start to go through awakening, and this is more for people around you, understand nothing's random. Nothing. It looks like we're in control of this reality. Nope. So the consciousness that is coming through the levels of intelligence, when one starts moving from the first three layers, that first triad of personality, they're having spiritual awakening. And this is when you come into the heart intelligence. The heart chakra starts to unfold. When the person starts to have this awakening, this is when the astral phenomena is really intense. A lot of times that person will start having telepathic connections, or higher sense of perception, or they're perceiving prophetic dreams, or they'll be in contact with another person and they'll get messages about that person, and they'll be like, am I supposed to tell that person what I'm feeling about them? Am I supposed to give them that message? There's a lot of confusion in the beginning, because when you start to open your astral body, you start to connect to a higher sense of perception and telepathy. And a lot of us are still getting practice on how to connect at that level. So a lot of beings that begin their spiritual awakening, they'll start to be confused over their life purpose. They'll start to want to understand what's happening to them. And again, asking for spiritual help from God's source, and starting to develop spiritual links and energetic communication, and as well having a thirst for this level of information. And again, as we move through the Ascension cycle, more beings will be having awakenings, and it's the beings that are in this room that have already had levels of awakening that are the teachers to those that are up and coming. So it's understanding that each one of us, we're like in a classroom. You know, the fifth graders teach the third graders, teach the kindergartners, so a lot of the times, and again, the student and teacher also have much to learn from each other. And again, not fixating on archetypes, but understanding that, again, a lot of the times we're called to hold space to support another. And so by seeing evolution phases and understanding that they're very purposed and not random is also very helpful when you tell someone, look, one who's perceiving their life is falling apart, you can say, sweetheart, you're having a spiritual awakening. And again, sometimes even that is such great comfort to someone who is going through a complete dismantling of their lives, because generally that is one of the signs of spiritual awakening, is you'll start to find a dismantling of either a relationship, a job, because the balance of power cannot exist at that imbalance any longer. So your spirit will say, okay, you've got to be extracted from that circumstance. You've got to move away from that person. And sometimes that's not fun when you have to end relationships and you can feel it in your own being. There's something not healthy or balanced here. I need to end the situation. So doing it gracefully and unconditionally and lovingly and with forgiveness, of course, is always something to apply, because it just means you're moving to another classroom, and they may too. And that's just beautiful. It's fine. Your work together is now complete, and it's time to expand in a new direction.